Yo, hello everybody, and welcome to another replay analysis with me, ViBE. And I'll be doing a replay analysis today of Rooster. BLV Rooster is his full name, but he goes by Rooster in game. And in today's replay analysis, we're going to be looking at ZvZ and how to properly identify and defend all-ins, techniques, and things you can do to better keep yourself alive from those cheeky all-in zergs. Let's get started. Alright, so Rooster is our red zerg here. We're going to be watching it from his vision, his map vision. And the biggest things about all-ins is you need to, if you do, you're going to most likely see zerglings coming across the map, okay? If the guy is not trying to hide the lings, you're going to most likely see lings coming across the map first. And I'm going to tell you some stuff right now really fast that you should keep in mind, okay? I'm going to pause the replay because we're going to talk about it for just a second. I would always recommend against every single race, Zerg included, because it's part of every race. Against all three races, keep your Overlord in front of your natural, or pretty close to your natural. Against Zerg, I would say keep it in front of your natural, like right here. Somewhere in the front. Because if your opponent does like an early 12 pool, 13 pool, and they do something like they want to be a fucking ninja, basically. They're the Great White Ninja, all right? And they want to do like, the lings run like this. They run down and they run around the bottom. They run down and around, and then they go around the side, and they try to avoid getting scouted by an Overlord. Having an Overlord in front of your natural will tell you this is happening before he's attacking your hatchery, if you were to go hatchery first. Because you'll see, oh look, what the hell, there's like 6 lings over here, or somewhere, you know? They're coming within range of your Overlord before they're even committed at the ramp, and this gives you like another 5 seconds, which is huge in an all-in. It gives you another like 5 seconds to prepare a defense for what he's doing. That 5 seconds could have been the difference of you doing something like making more drones, or saving larvae to get ready to make a zergling, or making a spinecrawler a little earlier, or who knows, pulling your drones if that's what you want to do. It gives you more time to react, basically. It makes it less of like, oh shit, I did the wrong thing just a few seconds ago and now I'm screwed. So it's important. It's huge. I'm glad the Overlord is currently going here in the front of your natural. I hope it stays there for now. But it's huge. It's a big thing that'll help you throughout the game. To defend all ends. Now the second Overlord, I would recommend doing this in every ZvZ, and you were doing exactly it already. Oh my god! Rooster, you're a fucking badass. Excuse my language. So, the only thing I would say is maybe don't send your Overlord in as deep. Maybe send your Overlord right here instead of right here, and shift-click it back. I love that you're shift-clicking it back, though, because if things happen where it distracts you, like, oh god, lings are in my base, and you forget about the Overlord, this way it's most likely not going to die, because you're pulling it back to a safer location. And all you want to do is spot if he is or is not taking a natural, and by the time your Overlord gets to the natural, he'll have already made that choice. But just keep in mind, I would say, pull it back maybe a little bit further. Just a little bit. Very small critique, because if this guy were to have gone for a 13-12 all-in, and if the queen spawned, and the first queen immediately injected the base, and then ran down the ramp right away, by the time your Overlord gets to about like right, I'd say like probably like right here, his queen would be coming down the ramp and he would be shooting your Overlord, and he most likely would kill your Overlord with a queen. So the only thing you want to know is did he or did he not take an expansion? Because if your Overlord gets to his base and there's no expansion here, okay, by the time the Overlord gets here to like right here, if you don't see an expansion, you can 100% guarantee you are going to be zergling, baneling, all in. That is what's happening. If you get your Overlord to right here, and you see an expansion, you can guarantee there are no banelings. This changes a lot about the defense required, because you cannot expand in the time it takes for an Overlord to get here if you're taking gas. It's just how it works. But you can expand if you do a gasless pressure, because you can expand because you'll have more money to work with, because less drones are mining gas. So keep that in mind. Those are huge indicators as to what kind of an all-in you're dealing with. It changes your It changes your overall defense that you need to set up dramatically, one way or the other, depending on what he's doing. And if you prepare the wrong way, you will set yourself behind in a game if you don't analyze what he's doing correctly. So keep that in mind. That's huge. That's important. You can still take a gas if you take a natural, but most people who do that will do like a follow-up speedling timing. It's not ever going to be an expansion plus banelings, because if it was that, there would be a really shitty amount of zerglings attacking you. It would be like 2 zerglings, because you can't afford to make an expansion, go to banelings, get speed, and make zerglings all right off the bat. You can't do all of that at once, unless you're playing God himself. You know, because then he just generates whatever he wants. But a normal person can't do that. Okay? Dude, we have limitations as a human being. Alright, so you've expanded. You've gone for a hatch gas pool, which is totally fine. Keep this in mind too, really quick. Hatch gas pool, though, is harder to stop all-ins with. Just throwing that out there. If you go hatch gas pool, what that means is your pool is going to be the latest building you make. So you're going to have really late queens and really late zerglings. So if this guy attacks you, it's going to be harder to hold in general. It's just going to be harder to hold. Alright, so we're checking it out. So you're taking 2 drones off gas. Or 1 drone off gas, rather. That's fine. You're getting zergling speed. This guy has not committed to an attack yet. And he has... Okay, this is not actually what I thought was going to happen. I thought you were actually going to get 13-12 this game. Never mind. So now this game is more standard. As of so far, both players have gone for a hatch first. Jesus, you can hear my wheezing? My wheezing? I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought you were going to show me like a 13-12. Either way, everything I said a second ago applies. All you want to know is if this guy has a natural. Because all you got to look at is the creep of the natural. So there's some indicators here, okay? Now we'll talk about these instead. Look at your base and look at his base. And think about the build that you did. His creep is like a couple blocks out from the hatchery. And creep spreads at the same pace no matter what. That's just how creep works. His creep looks pretty damn close to your creep. It's just barely off the hatchery. So what this means is both players are going hatch first. So there's no reason to dive the Overlord in further, because you know his hatchery is the same time as yours. Like, your Overlord's not going to die, because also he went hatch first, so his queen's going to be out in time, which is fine. But you don't need to dive. It's not a big deal. Like, you don't need to dive it. I'm not going to critique on this too much. Okay, if you want to scout the larva, by all means go ahead. Your Overlord is actually not in risk on this map specifically to die, but other maps that are a little bit further away from your base to his base, your Overlord then actually might be at risk to die. Just keep that in mind. Not every map is the same, and this map is okay with it, but some maps, if you dive like that, your Overlord could die. So try to remember that. It's you can get, no one wants to lose an Overlord early. It fucking sucks. But the biggest thing is, you know, he went hatchery first. The bigger things I'd be worried about is if this guy's natural was like halfway done or something like that when yours was done. Then I'd be like, okay, yeah, it's probably gonna be like a speedling timing, or obviously he went pool gas before natural. Those would be bigger things, because you'd have to question why the hell is his natural so late. But so far, I would say standard game. The first thing I would do if I were you, okay, is I would make a baling nest. Or you can take a third. That's fine. You can take a third, but I would make a baling nest right after. There's 2 ways to do it. Okay, let me just say this. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me just say this. There's 2 ways to open ZvZ at a higher level. One is you get a baling nest. If we're going to go for a build like this, okay? There's a lot of ways to open if you're going to go like other builds, like a 12 pool or gasless. But if you've committed to a hatch gas pool, okay? This is what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
Very Bash,
yeah.
thank you for the sub, by the way. I appreciate the 3 months, man. There's 2 ways to open from what you've done, Hashgas Pool. One way is you get a Baneling Nest. And you can be a little bit greedier with the Baneling Nest, because you're going to be having Banelings. But with the Baneling Nest, you really need to scout, because you need to know what the hell is going on. So these lings, if you're going to commit to a Baneling Nest, need to figure out what's happening. Otherwise, you're playing a blind build, which is risky. The other way to open it is you don't have to be as critical about scouting with your first 4 lings and, like, you know, going to take a third or whatever. And you can take a Roach Warren. And this build, you make less drones with it, but you make this big surge of Zerglings early on, which are going to give you map control no matter what your opponent is doing. It's either, if he's all-inning you, it's going to clash with him in the middle of the map, and it's going to give you time to prepare something else like roaches or more lings. Or it's going to pressure him if he's being greedy and do something like maybe kill his third base that he's trying to take, or keep him contained on 2 bases. You're going to figure out what's happening. The pressure itself is going to give you a scout as to what is happening. Does that make sense? So if that's the 2 ways to do it. The 2 ways to open. And if you don't make anything, if you make no tech at all, you're playing really risky. If your opponent then attacks you at all, you have a high chance of dying. But Baneling Nest or Roach Warren, one of those is required to not be... to take a third, basically. Or an Evo Chamber, I guess, but that's like, you better be a god of microing Zerglings. And you still need to... you'd have to play that like you would play a Roach Warren. Okay. You just scouted both thirds, and you also scouted 2 queens at the front, and you also scouted... or, sorry, you scouted no third, and you scouted a couple queens in the front so far. But no tech. Right off the bat, I would be thinking to myself, this guy is probably going to do some type... he's either built some tech in his main in some way, and it's either probably going to be a Baneling Nest or it's going to be an Evo Chamber. Already straight up. That's what I would be thinking. You see a Baneling Nest. Good shit. I'm going to take the production tab off because it looks like I'm cheating. I'm not even looking at the production tab, but I'm going to take it off. Okay. Now from here, I like that you're taking a Baneling Nest. That's fine. Your Baneling Nest is a little late. I'll say that right now. Like, your resources are a little high. I think you got distracted with the lings going on and shit like that. But your Baneling Nest is a little bit late because the reason why it's kind of scary is because if you decide now to make drones instead of Zerglings and your opponent makes Zerglings instead of drones, it is going to be impossible for you to hold your third. So just keep in mind, this Baneling Nest does need to go down relatively fast if you want to make drones. And if you want to play safe. If you want to play risky, that's totally fine. Like, you know, that's a whole different matter. Like, if that's a coin flip, then at that point. Okay, so now you're scouting his third again. You don't see a third. Why did I have production on again? Okay. So your opponent's not trying to take a third base. And he has 2 queens at the front, and he's got a Baneling Nest going up in his main. This I would honestly think to myself, okay, does he have like a fucking Evo Chamber in the back of his base or something? Something weird is going on that is not normal. And I would want to, if I were you, I would want to scout again as to what that might be. So I think you should totally run back into his base again and try to go scout what's going on. A gas. A layer. Okay, you scouted again. I like what you did. You saw he's already taking gas at his natural. This early. And he already has a layer that, who for all you know, might be started for like 20 seconds now, for 10 seconds. It might have just started as you ran up the ramp. But he showed you a layer. And it's most likely not going to be a fake layer because there's no third. From this point on, now that I see a layer, this is my next step I would do if I were you. You have more lings right now. I would grab 2 more of them, and I would have 1 ling attack around the bottom side of the map and 1 ling attack around the top side of the map at bases you still haven't seen for a while, or any possible type of hidden base. And if there's no hidden base on the map and this guy is still sitting on 2 bases, it rules out every potential build except for 2. The 2 builds it could be would be Fast Spire or a fast Nidus if he's going to stay on 2 bases this long. Because he's not, and he's also not even walling his base off, which is like, it's not a gasless build either, so it's not like some weird Hydra rush off gasless or Roach timing off gasless. He's actually got built a Baneling Nest, and he opened his base up. His base is still wide open. I would assume it's either going to be Mutalisk. I would say it's more likely to be Muta from what I've seen so far. Or it's going to be Nidus timing, which is weird. Because there might be, because you don't actually know the full story. There could be an Evo Chamber back here, or there could be a Roach Warrant back here. You don't know entirely what's going on. But you do know he's rushing a layer and he's still on 2 bases. So your choice was to go for Roach Warrant Evo. I don't mind that you just made a Roach Warrant in Evo, but I think your positioning is terrible. If you're going to make a Roach Warrant in an Evo chamber, you really need to put it on the ramp. Because now, if you're actually going to cancel the Baneling Nest, you are now vulnerable to mass lings. You're never going to... If this guy actually is going to flood you with, like, let's say, upgraded lings, after the fact that he's upgraded... let's say, you know, he's saturated his bases, and he's... going a layer. He's going to go mutas, but while going mutas, he's going to flood you with lings now. The fact that you canceled your tech and built it there means that you have no way to prepare for a flood of lings if you're not ready for it. So if you would have just built the Roach Warren in the Evo chamber on the ramp connecting, and if he were to then go, oh, you were then to see like, oh shit, like 30 lings are flooding me. It's not even an all-in, it's just a little bit of a flood. Or a timing, rather. You could then build a third Evo chamber and be like, okay, I'm fine. I could have like 3 roaches behind the wall killing like 30 lings, and it would buy me time to get more roaches to kill more lings or make my own lings or whatever. This is risky though. I would totally recommend building this on the ramp so you could eliminate one of the possibilities of dying now, which would be a ling flood or a ling bane flood. Keep that in mind. That is also another possibility that this guy could do. This guy could actually cancel this layer, make mass lings right now, and then just go like 20 banelings and attack you with that. And if you don't have a wall, there's nothing stopping him from just walking into your base. That is also a possibility. You have to think about shit like that. Like, what could his build do? And that is what it could do. That he could also cancel the layer and just flood you with Ling Bane. That is another possibility. How long is this replay again? It's about to end. Okay. So now, I'm not going to look at production because it shows me what he's doing. It's like cheating. So now, you've made drones. This is super risky, once again. Because the more drones you make as well at this point, the more potential you have to die to a timing. Because right now, you have no way of stopping any type of a flood. And you should expect something potentially aggressive because there was no third. Like, he's doing something weird. He's either rushing tech or he's massing units. Because he's not going to saturate a third base. Like, he doesn't care about... There you go. There's the Ling Flood. So even though this was a misread, all you had to do to change this, and you would have been 100% fine, your third base guaranteed is going to die. Because you canceled the Baneling Nest, and the Baneling Nest is what you needed to stop the Ling Flood. If you would have just built the Roach Horn, like I said here, in an Evo Chamber here, during this time, while this guy is fucking up your third base, you have to just cut your losses and go, ah, shit. 2 drones are going to die, the hatchery's going to die, cancel the queen. Make an Evo Chamber right here, and it would have sealed off your base entirely with a full wall. Doesn't mean you have to cancel your upgrades. It just means you're going to have another Evo Chamber right there. And behind that, your economy, we'll just take a look at it now really fast. You have 10 more drones than your opponent. If you built a wall here, it would buy you enough time to produce roaches. And you could even do one more inject right now with both your queens and have both queens sitting behind the wall and have them killing lings while your roaches come out. And then you could be totally fine. You just need a great wall of Evo chambers, basically, if this guy commits really hard to it. Because if you build an Evo chamber here, okay? Think about it like this. If you build an Evo chamber right there, and he comes up to attack this wall as soon as his hatchery's dead, and your Evo chamber's at like 2/3 health, or maybe even half. We'll say half, okay? The Evo chamber is at half health. If the Evo Chamber is at half health, and he's focus firing it, he wants to kill it, he wants to break inside your base, you could actually just go Evo Chamber right there, and Evo Chamber right there, behind it. And this is going to create a new wall behind this one, that's going to, or like, it would be like right there and right there, because your Evo Chamber would also be right there. You could make more Evos, and block in more areas of your base. You can always cancel them if you end up killing all the lings. But you could build them for now to keep him out of your base, out of your mineral lines, from flooding you. Just keep in mind that the way you've SimCity'd this is really weak, because you've opened up a hole in your build. So it's huge. It's very important. It's 100% important. That was it. Are you for real? I'm out. So, without looking at what he's done so far, there's no guarantee this guy is all-inning you. He totally could still have a layer with what he's done. Because what this guy has done is he has saturated 2 mineral lines and potentially 2 gases. It's not even a guarantee that he has this gas. He might have canceled it. Nothing's a guarantee here. But just keep in mind, if he would have saturated 2 gases and two mineral lines mostly, and taken a layer, he still could have done this while maintaining that. Because this right here is not a lot. This is a total of 11 larvae. This is 10 larvae worth of zerglings and 10 larvae worth of zergling and 1 larva worth of baneling. This is 11 larvae in total. That's like 1 inject plus a little bit of automated larva on each hatchery. So it's like honestly kind of like 1 minute of time has been invested into this. If we look at his build, he canceled the layer and he didn't saturate this gas, but he did saturate another gas in his main for whatever reason. So he made 3 gases but only saturated 2. But he canceled the layer. He didn't have to do that. He only made 2 banelings. It's not even like if this would have been like 12 banelings or like 15 banelings, I'd be like, yep, 100% layer has been canceled. But you quit the game when you were ahead. How close was your layer to being done? So, if I were you right now, here, I agree. This is annoying. I'm not gonna deny that. It could be annoying, but right now, okay, just a second before the game ends, you actually have the economy lead, and you also have a more powerful tech than he does, because your layer is 3 seconds. Your layer is 3 seconds from being done, which means you already have roach speed or roach weapons on the way, which is nice. You could totally take roach speed right now in 3 seconds, and you have the economy of decent economy to support it. If you were to do something like make a gas, a 3rd gas, and then saturate that 3rd gas, which is going to take 4 of your drones, so you'd have to make 1 more drone to retake your mineral line saturation, and then make 1 more drone to retake a new 3rd base. If you just made roaches, this guy would have a fucking hard time stopping that. You actually had a good position, a decent to alright position here. Now, if this, we're assuming that you're not going to take any more damage than you already took, okay? And you wouldn't if you had made roaches while having the Evo Chamber like we talked about. So just keep in mind, SimCity is insanely important in ZvZ. It's very, very important. SimCity is one of the most important things about early game ZvZ. It's huge. It's what makes queens more useful, and it's what makes random shit like this do way less damage than it should. Because, again, you have a drone lead by a lot. Your economy is way stronger than your opponent. You could easily afford to lose a hatchery and still be ahead. And your tech is way better than your opponent, which means this guy does not have an Evo Chamber. There's no sense of like lings being upgraded here anytime soon. What he's actually doing is, I think wasn't he going to make a roach warren or some shit? I thought I saw a roach warren in his base at some point. I don't know. There's no roach warren. Okay, well he's not, dude, he hasn't even started roaches. So he hasn't even started a roach warren, and he's doing this off of Lingbane. If you would have just, like I said, walled off just for a second to build roaches, and then you could even cancel your own wall once you have, or kill your own Evo chamber. Once you have, whatever the fuck it's called, some roaches to defend yourself, and you would be totally fine. You could make like 8 roaches or something. Have 2 bases saturated and 3 gases saturated, which would allow you to maintain roach production nonstop with all your larvae. You could just make roaches until your speed is done and your +1 weapons are done. And then you do a timing. And with this timing, with the way this game is kind of developed, where your +1 weapons is a little bit late and your roach warren's a little bit late because you canceled it and went to do it later, you would probably have 20 to 24 roaches instead of 12 to 16, because it's a later timing and you have more larvae to work with now. Does that make sense? You could do like a timing of like 20 roaches, and I guarantee you, you will at the very least fuck this guy's third up really bad. I think you just let ZvZ get the better of you in this game with frustrations, but you actually had a really good position here. The biggest thing is your SimCity, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much it, man. If I keep going, I'm just gonna keep repeating myself. But this game was very defendable. Change the SimCity. Go for a 2 base. He'll kill your third. That's fine. Whatever. You're mining way more than him, so you can afford to lose a third and still be ahead, because he's cut his own economy to do this. And then go for a timing where as soon as his third is done, your timing will be hitting him. And if he were to do something like he just makes drones for his third base now, 100% the game is over and you just win the game, because he will never have enough to stop the roaches from just rolling him over and killing him. And on the other side of the thing is he takes the third base and he does not make drones for it. Instead, he makes units. Well, he better make roaches, because if he makes only zerglings, once again, you win the game. Because roaches with +1 weapons and speed versus 0/0 zerglings, all you have to do is stutter step, kite backwards. You attack with your roaches, you back up. You attack with roaches, you back up. You do it literally like every second. Like the mouse movements would be attack, back up, attack, back up, attack, back up, attack, back up. And every single time you tell your roaches to attack, all your roaches will be shooting the lings because they're all trying to surround you and shit. And you'll be wiping out about a third of what your roach count is in zerglings every time. There will be a little bit of overkill, because you will have some roaches attacking lings that are going to die either way because it is a projectile. But if he's trying to surround you, which is what most zerg players will do, you will be killing 1/3 of about what your roach count is. So if you have 30 roaches, you'll be killing about 10 lings every time you do this. Because if he's trying to surround you, he's going to be wrapping around the sides of your roaches, which is going to make more of the AI of your roaches attack lings closer and closer, more spread out. Like, it will happen a lot. It's not always going to be 1/3, but it's going to roughly be around that. Sometimes it might be a little bit better than that. Sometimes it might be a little bit worse than that, depending on how deep he's fucking trying to surround you. And give it like 2 or 3 times of a move back up, a move back up, a move back up. And his ling group amount he has is going to start thinning out real fast. And if you're just flooding roaches off 2 bases because you're realizing this guy's just going mass fucking ling on like 0/0 upgrades, you're going to totally outlast him and kill him with the economy you have compared to the economy he has right now. You will 100% win that game, because you will always have you'll have like a 30 supply lead on him, and you'll always have just like this superior army. And another way that, where it's good to micro roaches is if you know he's got a big clump of lings and he's going to guaranteed get us around on you because it's just a shitload of lings. If you just run next to a wall, just like run your roaches up to a wall or a choke point, and now he can't get a good surround anymore because he doesn't get maximum surface area. It makes your roaches way more valuable because it reduces the amount of damage your roaches take by a large margin because you're not getting fully surrounded anymore. Yeah, man. I don't know. That's how this game should have gone from here, though. You just gotta keep in mind that there are the potentials of what your opponent can do, and what you can get fucked over by, and how can you eliminate that hole. And to recap really quickly, the first thing you saw was you both had a same opening expansion, which is fine. Nothing crazy can happen that fast after that. And if you go for a Baneling Nest, you really do need to scout, because if your opponent does something like he puts a Roach Warren in the back of his main, and he goes for like this weird roach timing where it's like 8 roaches mixed in with like 30 lings with a ling flood nonstop behind it. If you decide to go for a Baneling Nest and you make drones, you die to that build. If you go for a Baneling Nest and you go for an attack against him of Ling Bane, you're going to get denied, and he's going to then counterattack you, and you most likely die to that build. But anything else, if you go Baneling Nest, you can make it work usually, because if he goes for a Ling Flood or a Ling Bane Flood, you have Banelings to counter his Banelings and also his Zerglings. If he goes for just Mass Lings, your Banelings can counter his Zerglings pretty well. If he goes for drones, that's up to you then to decide, am I going to drone too, or am I going to pressure him? Scouting is insanely important if you go for a Baneling Nest. If you go for a Roach Warren, like I said before, the only way you don't have a hole in your build if you go for a Roach Warren is if you do something similar to like this shit, where you just make a surge of lings when you're at, like, let's say 8 drones on your natural mineral line, because there's no way you're going to stop any timings at all if you're starting a Roach Warren and you make drones non-stop. Because if your opponent decides to attack you, you'll never defend a third base. So you went for a Baneling Nest early on, and I understand your whole course of action in this game. I don't disagree with any of it, other than you built these buildings in a bad spot. But you were ahead even if the third died. With economy. These lings mean nothing. These Banelings mean nothing if you had a wall here. It actually just means your production tab. There you go. He's making more lings. That's totally fine, man. If he makes more lings, it actually makes you even further ahead. Because the supply right now, you might be like, but dude, ViBE, he's behind. But he's ahead by 10 workers. And if Red here, Rooster, makes roaches behind a wall, roaches and queens behind a wall shooting pure Zergling and a couple of Baneling can kill a shitload more Zergling than what their supply is worth. And then once you get to a point where if he actually attacks and thins out his army on your wall to try to break into your base, it gives you an opportunity to then counterattack him, where the supply would then be like, the opponent is, let's say, 50 supply, and the Zerg with the roaches is now at like 70 supply, or maybe even 80 supply. Lings are pretty shit against roaches when the roaches get up to about like 16 to 20, especially if the roach player also has a better economy. Needed overlords? It's all good. Like these are like little nitpicky things. If you're talking like, oh, supply box, avoid that. That's okay. I'm just trying to give you some general ideas here for things you can do and about where the position you're in and stuff like that. And roaches are definitely the advantage here if your opponent has no sense of a layer at all. Like there's no metas potentially coming out or something like that. There's not even a Roach Warren. The only way he can fight back against roaches right now with what he has, or fight against roaches right now with what he has, is with Ling Bane. And most likely what I would expect to happen would be this guy has here pretty soon he's going to have 400 gas. He has 2 gases mining in his main. So I would assume he's probably going to kill your third. This guy would probably kill your third, move to right here, or he would first test the natural. And if you had the wall in like I was talking about, he would poke in, and immediately I guarantee he would go back here. If you had queens and a couple, just like 2 queens and like 2 roaches attacking his lings on the door here, I guarantee he would go back to here, and then he would probably morph in like 16 Banelings. He'd be like, oh, let's go 16 fucking Banes, bitch. Yeah, 16 Banes, yeah, let's go. Like, that's probably what he would do, and he would just flood lings behind it. And if you saw that, and you had Roach Warren, Evo, you're never going to get the upgrades done in time, most likely, because he's going to blow your buildings up with Banelings. This is obvious. But what you could do is if you were worried about dying to this, and you had a Roach Warren, an Evo, and an Evo, what you could actually do is you could just, because you have a lot of drones here, you could actually, as soon as you see him morphing Banes, you could go Evo Chamber, Evo Chamber, Evo Chamber, Evo Chamber, which is going to be 4 more Evos behind your first wall of Evo, Evo, Roach. So it's just 4 more drones. Really, it's 5, because you have to also include the first Evo I said to put in here. So it's 5 more drones, okay? 5 more. The first Evo would be built way earlier. The first Evo Chamber would be built while this is dying. So that was, you're going to have just 1 drone invested at first. But if he were to make a shitload of Banes, you could go Evo, 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 Evo. 4 more, because you don't actually have the creep to build another one here, which is totally fine. But guess what? Put your army right there, and you have a second wall back here, and your army's right here. So what's going to happen is he's probably going to break the first Evo here because it doesn't have a second wall behind it. And in doing so, he's going to spend 2/3 of his Banes right away. And now you've created a new bottleneck where he can't just flood you. He bottlenecks into your army, which is just chilling, just waiting. And every second that goes by, more roaches are spawning behind your army, increasing the power of your bottleneck. And your queens can even be there, blocking as well. Like and if you were really worried about it, you could actually just build another Evo Chamber right there and block it off entirely. You could actually go Evo, 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 and then Evo, Evo. Just like make another wall of Evos behind your first wall of Evos because you have a ton of drones. And if this guy's going to flood you with lings, it means that he's not droning as much. But yeah, SimCity, like, again, that's where once again comes down to SimCity. SimCity is huge. It's huge. Super important in ZvZ. SimCity is a very, very important thing about ZvZ because it is one way to avoid dying to all-ins and pressure builds. Okay, anyways, I feel like mostly we covered it. Tune in next time, guys. Yeah, tune in next time when we do another replay analysis. And shout out to Rooster for giving me this one. And Rooster, I hope this helps you out in some way. Thank you, man. And yeah, man, guys, I don't know. I feel like we kind of covered it. Thank you for watching it. And I'll see you next time on another replay analysis video. Goodbye.